Alright, it's day 139 of this Growing an Alphonso mango seedling series. And you can see the ice cream bean in the background has blown over. So that plant is a very fast grower and it uses up all the water. It has big leaves, compound leaves. So it becomes top heavy whenever the pot is dried out and it just blows over. So I'm still looking into solutions. You can see the beautiful hues of orange and yellow on this. Not as pretty as the end of the last episode, but still very beautiful. And I've got my craft wire. It's a very long length of it, just sort of holding this up in the middle. So this plant can't support itself. Very surprising. Makes me think that this isn't grown from seed, but rather a cutting, because that's the only explanation that makes sense. How could a seedling act like this in the wild and survive? It couldn't. So this thing, when it was much shorter, was already falling over. And now that it's adding inches every few weeks, it's just becoming more and more unstable, actually. So it's day 154. I've got a new section of growth with this sort of reddish purplish tinge to it. It's very, very attractive. Reminds me of the days when I was growing, germinating those Mexican mango seeds in containers, plastic containers indoors. Had all sorts of beautiful colors, and it grew a lot slower. So it's day 182. My finger span's about 8 inches, 20 centimeters. So this leaf is like 13 centimeters. And yeah, you saw that I have the Farmer's Defense sleeves on. So these sleeves enable me to do a lot of gardening work without rubbing sunscreen all over my forearms every 2 hours. And yeah, there's some new growth coming in. It's looking really beautiful. So far I haven't had any problems really so far in this series, but with the mango, you never know, because in my past experiences, like, this is one of the toughest plants to grow, so I'm expecting problems, any day now. And right when I bought this, in the beginning, in April 30th, 2022, just a few days later, I saw weird bugs, and lo and behold, like, let's look at this leaf. In the center, it's got powdery mildew. So one thing I haven't done for a long time for my plants is spray some Bayer BioAdvanced. I might have to do that at some point. So that's what I'm doing right now. And it's been a really long time. I thought I could just move away from this, but I did get something a little bit more powerful, but the warnings are just kind of scary, to be honest. So I'm just going to stick with this and see if the situation gets better. And yeah, I think Bayer BioAdvanced is one of those things that is just like, it does just enough, but it's not all that toxic. So yeah, so I'm going to brew some fresh stuff. And I don't know if that stuff that I just showed you that I was spraying from the spray bottle, which has just been sitting diluted, is that still potent enough? Because it's one of those things where when you work in a lab, just kind of, it's commonly believed that, when you dilute things, sometimes your samples will degrade or your reagents may degrade over time, even though you might have them stored in a nice cool place. But so yeah, I'm just using my motorized sprayer over there, backpack sprayer that's battery operated. So as I previously mentioned, I had used a craft wire to keep this propped up during windstorms, and we've had a lot of rain recently, and this thing won't stay upright. So it's a big disappointment in that department, and some of the older leaves are dying. So I don't know whether this is just due to the colder temperatures of winter, or is it because the plant's not doing well. I didn't spray that Bayer BioAdvanced for a couple of months, so maybe mold was taking a hold. And this thing is sprouting some new leaves at the base, which is very promising. Since this thing can't stand up on its own, I need it to be bushier. And I can't wait for the trunk to start showing signs of like brown bark, because that would mean that I don't have to support this thing forever. But in the meantime, it just seems to get more and more top heavy, and it bends over horribly if it has no support. And I don't think this craft wire is going to cut it for that much longer, despite my best intentions. I've been thinking about a solution regarding keeping my plants upright, keeping them from blowing over. And as you can see in the background, the ice cream bean, I just moved it to a better position, and that seems to have solved the problem, although that too is a cutting. So I'm very disappointed to realize that this mango is not from a seed. It's from a cutting, which means it's going to have balance problems for, as long as basically until it gets bark, which might take a long time. So I've been feeding this with Miracle Grow, and it's been getting really big. The leaves are huge. So I think it's even more lopsided than a cutting would be if you had just brought it to its native environment and stuck it in the ground and took care of it for a while. So yeah, the new set of leaves is looking really nice. The craft wire is kind of unsightly, but it's out of the way. But yeah, you can see me wearing another pair of Farmer's Defense sleeves. So yeah, feel free to go into the link in the description of this video and check out Farmer's Defense. They sell all kinds of sleeves. I wear larges, and I don't have thick arms by any means, so yeah, you probably want to get a large if you're around my size, or maybe even something bigger, depending on the thickness of your arms. Like, everyone has a variance due to how thick their arm bones naturally are. So yeah, I really love this new shower wand that I got from Lowe's. It's great for watering my plants. It's very, very gentle, and that's just great for washing and watering all my plants. So I use this for the entire front yard, and you can see how my other plants are doing. The Cadota fig, I don't think that fared too well during the winter. It lost a lot of leaves, and at one point I saw, I think, fungus gnats. So as long as the fungus gnats are outdoors, it's not really that big of a problem. But that's what you get for using organic growing mediums, and that's what I was trying to avoid with all of the sand and filtered clay soil mixtures. You can see the lemons recovered really well from the caterpillar plagues, and the Joshua tree is doing what it's been doing for the last few years. It's just chugging along. So on day 252, I was very pleased to see that there are new shoots developing. You see I filled the water tray. So I basically water from the top down until I see the tray get full, and the catch tray. So you can see there's a whole bunch of new shoots, and beautiful red leaves are coming out, and it looks like it's going to sprout and go off in like 4 or 5 different directions. So I didn't expect that, but the ravages of winter have taken a hold, and I think the Bayer BioAdvanced has stemmed the advance of whatever problems I had. You can see some webbing actually in the seconds before. So maybe there's like some kind of mite problem. That second to last set of leaves that I just showed you, that wasn't doing too hot. And you can see these very old, very large green mature leaves. They're being burned at the edges now. That could just be because they're old and the plant's going to recycle all the nutrients from them, or it could be from disease, fungal problems. Cold weather, probably doesn't get this cold as it does in its native jungle environment. So maybe that's the problem. And I think this is on its way to recovery, but it's become like even more top heavy. You can see the lemons doing better in the background, and there's some pretty colors on the ice cream bean. So yeah, my plants reacted differently to the San Diego winter. Cadota fig seemed to fare the worst actually, but it's really hard to compare all these different tropical fruit trees and plants, because it's like yeah, the papaya, eventually that lost a lot of its leaves over the winter too, and it looks pretty good in that picture in this video footage right here, but yeah, it got a lot worse as time went on. Alright, it's day 261 of the series, and you can see there's a snail problem once again. Now, if you follow my recent plant episodes, you'll know that I like to sprinkle iron phosphate pellets everywhere. So we had a really wet winter in San Diego and in California in general for 2022 going on 2023. And because of that, there's snails everywhere. Well, I don't think they like the cold, but the wetness definitely. And these are eating a papaya leaf that fell. The papaya is one of the plants that didn't fare too well during the winter. It lost a lot of leaves despite my best efforts. So this is a snail, a big one that's trying to get on the crafts wire and go to my mango plant. Probably smelled the fragrance, the aromatic compounds coming off the leaves after the rains. And there's two big snails. There's a dropping there. There's a third one beneath the rim of the pot. It's pretty disgusting. You can see the leaves are starting to suffer. The mature leaves look like they're being eaten away from something, or the plant itself is sort of dying off a little bit. Who knows if that's due to just the winter conditions or predation. It could even be diseases carried by these snails. After they eat the leaves, they could be passing on pathogens as well. So it's very disgusting. And here are some slugs. I saw two slugs. Here's one of them on my Cadota fig planter. Now the Cadota fig planter has cocoa coir just like all the other plants, but it lost a lot of leaves during the winter, and it kind of stank, the pot. And one time when I kind of moved it, there was like a small cloud of fungus gnats coming out. So this thing, it's in a little bit of trouble, although it is quite robust in how it grew going into the winter, so I think it should be fine. This slug has an ulcer. These are just nasty creatures, gastropods, and they carry diseases. Very gross. And so hopefully more iron phosphate pellets keeps them at bay. The rain actually washes the iron phosphate away. So it's day 273. And even with that setup where the wire was tying this to the air conditioning compressor, this thing still blew over in the middle of a storm, which meant one day when I came home from work, I had to, keep on my jacket and go out there and do all this tying and untying and repositioning of the craft wire. It's super aggravating and annoying, and I'm tired of this thing falling over. So I went to Lowe's and I got these 6 thin but very sturdy bamboo sticks to stick in the outer perimeter of this pot. And sticking them in there caused some root ripping noises, which I figured it had to be part of the cost of just keeping the structural integrity in place for this plant. So the sprouts, the new shoots at the bottom, are doing pretty well actually, and I'm starting to have high hopes for this plant because despite everything it's been through in the winter and all the snails and the leaves becoming dog-eared, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. It's sprouting new sets of leaves at multiple locations, a feat that's never been achieved by me in the past with all my mango growing attempts. So this thing is almost tall enough to be called a sapling, but it can't stand on its own. I might have to readjust the gaudy colored nylon string from time to time to get this thing to be perfectly straight. But overall, I'm so much happier with this configuration than with the craft wire. And as you can see, just like the ice cream bean in the background, I positioned this to be closer to that dead space of recession that has the living room windows. And it's just basic like fluid physics. It's like there's a pocket of air in this recess spot, just like there is near the shower hose and the door. So those are places where when external wind currents blow against this area, it's like that air in the dead space acts as a buffer zone and prevents the wind from blowing straight through. So the wall basically, and the dead space of air, really slows down the wind. And compared to the center of my front yard where my ice cream bean was before, the wind speeds here are considerably less. So I don't have to be worried about my plants blowing over if I place them in or near these recesses next to the townhouse. So that's my progress for episode 2 of this series, and I think things are really starting to look up. Thanks for watching.